Stop chasing people, because the more you beg someone to stay, the more you teach them that your presence has no price. The more you explain your pain, the more they learn they can hurt you and still keep you waiting. And the shocking truth is this: some people do not respect your love until you take it away. They do not hear your words when you are pleading. They only feel your absence when you finally go silent. Hello everyone. Welcome to the Stoic Hypnosis channel. In this video, we are going to talk about why chasing, begging, and over-explaining slowly destroys your self-respect. Why the person you are trying so hard to keep may actually be losing respect for you, and how to step back with dignity, silence, and strength. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all, and sometimes the person you stop chasing finally begins to understand what they lost. Now let's get started. Part 1. Every time you chase, you give away a piece of yourself. There comes a moment in almost every person's life when they believe that love must be earned through sacrifice. So they chase. They send one more message. They make one more phone call. They apologize for mistakes they never made. They explain themselves over and over, hoping that if they can only find the right words, the other person will finally understand. I used to believe that too, but life has a cruel way of teaching us what pride refuses to learn. The people who truly value you rarely require endless explanations. They don't ask you to prove your worth every single day. They don't keep you guessing about where you stand in their life. When someone genuinely cares, clarity replaces confusion. When they don't, no amount of explaining will change their heart. Here's what most people never realize. Every time you chase someone who keeps walking away, you quietly send them a dangerous message. You tell them that they can ignore you, delay their replies, disappear without warning, break your trust, and you'll still be there waiting. Not because you're weak, but because you've confused persistence with love. The saddest part is that this doesn't only change how they see you, it changes how you see yourself. Little by little, you stop asking whether they deserve your time. Instead, you begin asking whether you deserve theirs. And that is where self-respect begins to disappear. Real strength isn't found in convincing someone to stay. It is found in having the courage to stop chasing someone who has already shown you where you stand. Because the moment you stop running after people who keep choosing distance, you finally create space for those who will never make you question your value in the first place. Part 2. Stop explaining yourself to people who have already chosen their version of you. One of the hardest lessons life will ever teach you is this: not everyone misunderstands you by accident. Some people misunderstand you on purpose because the version of you they have created inside their mind is far more convenient than the truth. If admitting they were wrong would force them to face their own pride, they will protect their ego instead of your honesty. And that is why endless explanations rarely change anything. I learned this far too late. There was a time when I believed every conflict could be solved with enough patience. I thought that if I stayed calm, if I explained my intentions one more time, if I showed enough kindness, people would eventually understand me. But I wasn't seeking understanding. I was seeking permission to be accepted. And those are two very different things. The moment your peace depends on convincing someone else that you're a good person, you have already handed them control over your emotional life. Think about the strongest people you have ever met. Notice something about them. They don't spend their lives defending every rumor. They don't argue with every accusation. They don't interrupt every misunderstanding. Not because they don't care, but because they understand something most people never do. Your character is built by how you live, not by how many speeches you give about yourself. People who truly want to know you will watch your actions. People who are determined to judge you will ignore them anyway. So why exhaust yourself trying to win a trial where the verdict was decided long before you ever spoke? Silence is often mistaken for weakness. In reality, silence is confidence, refusing to beg for approval. There is an incredible freedom that arrives the day you stop explaining every decision, every boundary, every absence, every choice that protects your peace. You begin to realize that your life is not a courtroom. You are not on trial, and the people who genuinely belong in your life will never require endless evidence to believe in your heart. Sometimes the most powerful sentence you will ever speak is the one you choose not to say. Before we continue, if these words are speaking to a part of you that has been silent for far too long, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. This community isn't about chasing people. It's about rebuilding yourself. It's about becoming so emotionally strong that no rejection, no betrayal, and no disappointment can steal your peace again. If that's the person you're determined to become, subscribe now, and let's continue this journey together. Because the next lesson may completely change the way you see yourself and the people you've been trying so hard to hold on to. Part 3. The day you stop chasing is the day you begin to be free. There is a strange silence that appears the day you stop chasing someone. At first it feels uncomfortable. Your hands want to reach for the phone. Your mind keeps inventing reasons to send one last message, one last explanation, one last apology, one last chance. You convince yourself that this time will be different. But it almost never is, because when someone has already decided to walk away emotionally, your effort becomes background noise. The harder you pull, the further they drift. I know how painful that truth can be, not because I read it in a book, but because I lived it. There comes a point where chasing is no longer an act of love. It becomes an act of fear. Fear of being forgotten, fear of being replaced, fear that if you stop reaching out, no one will come looking for you, and that fear quietly becomes a prison. You stop living your own life because your happiness depends on someone else's attention. You wake up wondering if they texted. You go to sleep replaying conversations that ended days ago. Your peace no longer belongs to you. It belongs to whoever has the power to answer or ignore your message. That is not love. That is emotional captivity. The moment you stop chasing, something remarkable begins to happen. Not always around them, but always within you. The endless noise inside your mind starts to fade. You begin to hear your own thoughts again. You remember the dreams you abandoned while trying to save someone who never asked to be saved. You rediscover your dignity, your confidence, your identity, and whether they come back or not, something far more valuable has already returned. You? Ironically, many people only notice your value after they can no longer reach it whenever they want. Not because silence is a game. Not because you're trying to punish anyone, but because your absence finally reveals what your constant presence was hiding. People rarely appreciate what is always available. They appreciate what they are no longer certain they can have. So stop asking who left. Stop asking why they changed. Ask yourself a different question. What kind of life could I build if I stopped chasing people and started chasing my own purpose? Because that question has the power to change the rest of your life. Part 4. Never lose yourself. Trying to keep someone else. One of the greatest tragedies in life is not losing someone you love. It is losing yourself while trying to keep them. At first, the changes are almost invisible. You stop saying what you truly think because you don't want to upset them. You ignore the things that hurt because you're afraid they might leave. You lower your standards. You abandon your boundaries. You become smaller, quieter, more careful. Until one day, you look in the mirror and barely recognize this person staring back at you. And the cruel irony is this: the very person you sacrificed yourself for often begins to lose respect for you. Not because you loved too deeply, but because you stopped respecting yourself. People can feel the difference between love and desperation. Love gives. Desperation surrenders. Love stands beside someone. Desperation kneels before them. The moment your entire identity depends on keeping one person happy, you stop living your own life. You begin performing instead of being. Every conversation becomes a test. Every silence feels like rejection. Every disagreement feels like the end. That is an exhausting way to exist. And no relationship built on fear can ever become a peaceful home. The strongest people I've ever known all shared one quiet habit. They loved deeply, but they never begged to be loved back. They gave their time freely, but never at the cost of their dignity. They listened with compassion, but they also knew when silence was the wiser answer, because they understood something that most of us learn far too late. The right people are not impressed by how much of yourself you are willing to sacrifice. They are inspired by the strength it takes to remain true to who you are. If someone only stays because you keep chasing, keep apologizing, keep proving, keep shrinking yourself, then they are not choosing you. They are choosing the version of you that asks for nothing and accepts everything. That is not acceptance. That is dependence. Real love never asks you to betray your own soul just to earn a place in someone's life. It asks you to grow, to be honest, to stand with quiet confidence, even when your voice shakes. So never become so afraid of losing another person that you lose the only person who must stay with you for the rest of your life, yourself, because when self-respect walks out of the room, no relationship, no matter how passionate it once seemed, can ever fill the emptiness it leaves behind. Part 5. Walk away in silence and let life reveal the truth. There is a kind of strength that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't seek revenge. It doesn't post cryptic messages hoping someone will feel guilty. It simply walks away, quietly, gracefully, without asking anyone to understand. That kind of strength is rare, because most people want closure. They want the last word. They want the other person to finally admit they were wrong, but life doesn't always give you that ending. Sometimes the apology never comes. Sometimes the explanation never arrives. Sometimes the people who hurt you continue living as if nothing ever happened. And that reality can either poison your heart or set you free. The day I stopped waiting for people to become who I needed them to be was the day I finally began to heal. I realized that peace is not found in changing someone else's mind. It is found in accepting what their actions have already revealed. Words can comfort you for a moment. Promises can keep you hoping for another month. But patterns rarely lie. If someone repeatedly makes you feel unimportant, believe the pattern. If they only remember your value after you've started walking away, believe the pattern. If you constantly have to remind someone how to treat you, believe the pattern. People eventually reveal who they are. The question is whether you are willing to believe them the first time, or whether you will keep sacrificing years of your life waiting for a different ending. Walking away is not an act of hatred. It is an act of wisdom. It is choosing peace over permission, growth over attachment, self-respect over temporary comfort. And here's the beautiful irony. The moment you stop trying to convince people of your worth, you begin living in a way that no longer requires their validation. Your energy changes. Your standards change. The people you attract begin to change. Not because you became colder, but because you became clearer. You no longer chase. You no longer beg. You no longer explain yourself to people who have already decided not to understand. Instead, you invest that energy in becoming someone you are proud to wake up as every morning. Because at the end of life, it won't matter how many people you manage to keep. It will matter whether you manage to keep your integrity, your peace, your dignity, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you never abandoned yourself just to avoid being abandoned by someone else. So let them misunderstand you. Let them leave. Let them tell whatever story helps them sleep at night. You don't have to interrupt every lie. You don't have to chase every goodbye. Your responsibility is not to force others to see your value. Your responsibility is to live in a way that never makes you question it yourself. And sometimes, the strongest ending is not hearing them say, "I was wrong." It's reaching a place where you no longer need them to. Conclusion. One day, you'll look back and realize that the people you were so afraid of losing were never the center of your life. You were. The moment you stopped begging for love, explaining your worth, and chasing those who kept walking away, you began reclaiming something far more valuable than any relationship: your self-respect. Remember this: the people who truly belong in your life will never require you to abandon your dignity just to earn their presence. So this week, make one promise to yourself. Stop sending the message you know you shouldn't send. Stop explaining yourself to those who have already chosen not to understand. Instead, spend that time building your mind, your health, your future, and your confidence. Because every step you take toward yourself is one step away from the life that once kept you trapped. If this message spoke to you, subscribe to the channel and join us on this journey of self-mastery, emotional strength, and timeless wisdom. There are many more life-changing lessons waiting ahead, and I would be honored to walk that path with you. Thank you for taking the time to watch until the end of the video. See you in the next videos.